The sterile white walls of St. Mary's Children's Hospital seemed to close in around 12-year-old Marcus Wellington as he sat hunched over in the uncomfortable plastic chair, his designer clothes wrinkled from hours of restless waiting. Tears streamed down his pale cheeks, leaving dark spots on his expensive polo shirt. The Rolex watch on his thin wrist, a gift from his father for his last birthday, ticked loudly in the oppressive silence of the waiting room. Marcus had never felt so alone in his life. Despite being surrounded by the finest things money could buy, despite living in a mansion with more rooms than he could count, despite having a trust fund that would set him up for multiple lifetimes, he sat there, utterly isolated. His father, Richard Wellington III, CEO of Wellington Industries and one of the wealthiest men in the state, was nowhere to be found. Again. The phone call had come that morning while Marcus was at his elite private school. His grandmother, the only person who had ever shown him genuine love and affection, had collapsed during her morning walk. She was rushed to the hospital, and Marcus had immediately asked to be taken to see her. But when he called his father's office, he was told Mr. Wellington was in an important board meeting and couldn't be disturbed. That was 8 hours ago. Marcus's grandmother, Eleanor Wellington, had raised him more than his own parents ever had. While his father buried himself in corporate conquests and his mother flitted between charity galas and spa retreats in Europe, it was Grandma Ellie who had read him bedtime stories, helped with homework, and listened to his dreams and fears. She was the one who remembered his favorite cookies, who celebrated his small victories at school, and who never made him feel like an inconvenience. Now she lay unconscious in the intensive care unit, and the doctors weren't sure she would wake up. A soft, shuffling sound made Marcus look up through his tears. A young man, probably in his mid-20s, was walking toward the vending machines near Marcus's corner of the waiting room. The man looked tired, wearing faded jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt that had seen better days. His sneakers were worn at the edges, and his brown hair was disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. What caught Marcus's attention, however, was the small boy walking beside him. The child couldn't have been more than 5 years old, with the same brown hair as the man, and he was clutching a stuffed dinosaur that was missing one arm. The boy's clothes were clean but clearly second-hand, and his shoes had been patched with duct tape. Marcus watched as the young man, obviously the boy's father, knelt down to the child's level and spoke in gentle tones. "Okay, buddy, I'm going to get us some crackers from the machine. Can you be my brave helper and sit right here in this chair for just 1 minute?" The little boy nodded solemnly and climbed into a chair 2 seats away from Marcus. The father walked to the vending machine, fishing through his pockets for change. Marcus could see him counting coins carefully, his brow furrowed with concentration. The vending machine rejected the first few coins the man tried to insert. They were too old or too bent. Marcus watched as the father tried again and again, his movements becoming more frustrated. Finally, the machine accepted enough coins, and a small package of crackers fell into the slot below. The man returned to his son with the crackers, but Marcus noticed something that made his chest tighten. As the father handed the snack to the boy, he didn't take any for himself. Instead, he sat down and watched with a tired but loving smile as his son ate. "Daddy, aren't you hungry too?" the little boy asked, offering half of his crackers. "No, buddy, I'm fine. You eat up. You need your strength." But Marcus could hear the gentle rumbling of the man's stomach from where he sat. The boy noticed Marcus watching and gave him a small, shy wave. Marcus managed a weak smile and waved back, which seemed to delight the child. "Daddy, why is that?" "Boy crying?" the little one whispered, though not quietly enough to avoid being overheard. The young father glanced over at Marcus, and their eyes met for a moment. Marcus quickly looked away, embarrassed to be caught in his vulnerable state. To Marcus's surprise, the man stood up and walked over to him. "Hey there," he said gently, settling into the chair next to Marcus. "I'm Jake, and that's my son Tommy over there. You okay?" Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, feeling ashamed. He wasn't used to strangers showing him kindness. People usually recognized the Wellington name and either treated him with calculated deference or kept their distance entirely. I'm fine," Marcus mumbled, though his voice cracked as he said it. Jake studied him for a moment, and Marcus could see genuine concern in the man's eyes. "You know, I've been sitting in hospital waiting rooms for the better part of 3 years now, and I've learned that nobody's really fine in a place like this. Sometimes it helps to talk." Something in Jake's voice broke through Marcus's defenses. "My grandmother is in the ICU," he whispered. "She collapsed this morning, and I don't know if she's going to be okay. And my dad won't even come. He's too busy with work." Jake's expression softened with understanding. "I'm sorry, kid. That's really tough. Your grandmother must be pretty special to you. She's the only one who—" Marcus's voice trailed off as fresh tears began to fall. "She's the only one who actually cares about me. Not about my dad's money or our family name or what I can do for the company someday. She just loves me. And you love her too, I can see that." Jake reached over and placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "What's your name?" "Marcus. Marcus Wellington." If Jake recognized the prominent family name, he didn't show it. He simply nodded as if Marcus were any other 12-year-old boy. "In pain? Well, Marcus, can I tell you something? Something that might sound a little shocking?" Marcus looked up, curious despite his grief. Jake took a deep breath. "The thing is, son, I think you might be one of the luckiest kids in this hospital. Right now." Marcus stared at him in disbelief. "What? How can you say that? My grandmother might be dying, and I'm all alone here." "I know it sounds crazy," Jake said calmly, "but hear me out. You see, Tommy and I have been coming to this hospital for 3 years now. Tommy was born with a rare heart condition that requires constant monitoring and treatment. We've been in and out of here more times than I can count." Marcus glanced over at the little boy, who was contentedly munching his crackers and making his one-armed dinosaur walk along the armrest of his chair. The child looked so normal, so happy. "But he looks fine," Marcus said. "He is, mostly, thanks to the doctors here and some incredible medical advances. But for the first 2 years of his life, I didn't know if he'd live to see his next birthday. I've sat in chairs just like these, crying just like you are now, wondering if I was going to lose the most important person in my world." Jake's voice grew softer. "Tommy's mom couldn't handle it. She left when he was 6 months old, said she couldn't watch him suffer, couldn't handle the uncertainty. So it's been just me and him ever since." Marcus felt a strange mixture of sympathy and confusion. "But you said I was lucky?" Jake smiled, and it transformed his tired face. "You want to know what the difference is between you and me, Marcus? When I was sitting in that chair 3 years ago, terrified that I might lose my son, I would have given anything to have just one other person who loved him as much as I did sitting beside me. Someone to share the burden, to hold my hand, to tell me it was going to be okay." He gestured toward Marcus. "You have that person. You have someone who loves you so much that even the thought of losing her breaks your heart. And you know what else? She's fighting right now, in that room upstairs. And part of what's keeping her fighting is knowing that you're down here loving her." Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. "But my dad—" "Your dad isn't here right now," Jake interrupted gently. "And that's his loss, not yours. Because he's missing out on seeing what I see. A kid who loves deeply, who feels things strongly, who has the capacity for real connection. Those are gifts, Marcus. Not everyone has them." Jake paused, watching Marcus process his words. "I've learned something in these 3 years of hospital visits. The people who matter, who really matter, they show up. Maybe not always in the way we expect or want, but they show up. Your grandmother showed up for you your whole life, didn't she? Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Then she's still showing. Up now, she's in there fighting because she knows you need her. And you're here, showing up for her even though it hurts. That's love, kid. Real love. From across the room, Tommy called out, "Daddy, the dinosaur wants to meet the sad boy." Jake chuckled. "Tommy, his name is Marcus, and I don't think he's as sad as he was a few minutes ago." Tommy scrambled down from his chair and trotted over to them, holding up his one-armed dinosaur. "This is Rex," he announced proudly. "He lost his arm in a big battle, but he's still really brave. Want to hold him?" Marcus found himself accepting the worn, stuffed animal. It was soft from years of love and countless washings. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Rex makes everything better," Tommy declared, with the absolute certainty that only a 5-year-old could possess. "He made Daddy stop crying when we first came to the hospital." Jake's cheeks reddened slightly, but he didn't deny it. "Rex is pretty special," he agreed. As Marcus held the little dinosaur, he felt some of the crushing weight in his chest begin to lift. Not disappear. The fear for his grandmother was still there, but it no longer felt like it might suffocate him. "Jake," Marcus said suddenly, "why are you and Tommy here today?" "Just a routine checkup," Jake replied. "Tommy's doing great, but we still come in every few months to make sure everything's working the way it should. We should hear back from the doctor soon." "And you're not scared anymore?" Jake considered this. "I still get nervous before every appointment. I probably always will. But I've learned that being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. Brave means feeling the fear and showing up anyway, like you did today." Just then, a doctor in scrubs approached their little group. "Tommy Morrison," she called. "That's us," Jake said, standing up. Tommy retrieved his dinosaur from Marcus and gave him a big hug around the legs. "I hope your grandma gets better," he said with sincere 5-year-old earnestness. "Me too," Marcus replied, returning the hug. Jake turned to Marcus before following the doctor. "Hey, Marcus, that grandmother of yours raised someone pretty special. She's going to be proud of how you handled today, no matter what happens." As Jake and Tommy disappeared down the hallway, Marcus felt more alone than before. But it was a different kind of alone. Not the desperate, abandoned feeling he'd carried all day, but rather the solitude of someone gathering strength. He thought about what Jake had said about showing up, about love being present even in the hardest moments. His grandmother had shown up for him every day of his life. She taught him to be kind, to think of others, to find joy in simple things. She'd shown him what real love looked like. And suddenly, Marcus knew what he needed to do. He walked to the information desk and asked for paper and a pen. Then, sitting back down in his plastic chair, he began to write. "Dear Grandma Ellie, I'm sitting in the hospital waiting room, and I wanted you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere until you wake up. I met a boy today named Tommy who has a stuffed dinosaur named Rex, and his daddy taught me something important. He taught me that love means showing up, especially when it's hard. You've been showing up for me my whole life. When Dad was too busy and Mum was too far away, you were always there. You showed up to my school plays, even when I only had 2 lines. You showed up with soup when I was sick. You showed up with hugs when I was sad, and with cookies when I was happy. Now it's my turn to show up for you. I love you, Grandma. And please come back to me." Marcus folded the letter carefully and walked to the nurse's station. "Excuse me," he said politely to the woman behind the desk. "Could you please make sure my grandmother gets this when she wakes up? She's Eleanor Wellington." In the ICU, the nurse, a kind-looking woman with graying hair, took the letter and smiled. "Of course, sweetie. And Marcus, your grandmother is one lucky lady to have you." As Marcus returned to his chair, he felt different. Still worried, still scared, but no longer alone. He had learned something profound from a young single father and his brave little boy with a one-armed dinosaur. That love wasn't about having perfect circumstances or unlimited resources. Love was about showing up, being present, choosing to stay even when it hurt. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. Still in meetings. Driver will pick you up at 8 p.m. For the first time all day, Marcus didn't feel the familiar stab of disappointment. His father's absence said nothing about Marcus's worth and everything about his father's choices. Marcus had all the love he needed, had always had it, in the form of an extraordinary grandmother who had taught him how to love others. Hours later, when the doctor finally came to tell him that his grandmother was stable and asking for him, Marcus walked toward her room. With steady steps, he had shown up, he had stayed. And now, like Jake had promised, the person who mattered most was showing up too, by fighting her way back to him. As he entered his grandmother's room and saw her tired but smiling face, Marcus realized that sometimes the most shocking thing isn't what strangers say to you in hospital waiting rooms. Sometimes the most shocking thing is discovering that you're stronger and more loved than you ever imagined possible. "Hello, my brave boy," his grandmother whispered, reaching for his hand. And Marcus, no longer the millionaire's boy sitting in tears, took her hand and smiled back.